Knowledge or Nonsense is a nuts and bolts discussion of information that serves not only the sterilization audience, but the general public as well. We navigate through and transition out of wrong thought processes and myths, especially as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. The audience will benefit from our ability to make sterilization and infection control measures plain by translating regulatory jargon into daily language and actionable steps. Steps that not only include us, but consider us. The same for the community. There are things that are including us but don't consider us, and so we're going to look at it. We're going to vet. Where did you hear it from? Who said it? Is it sound? Does it make sense? Is it knowledge or is it nonsense? Here we are. We are our own voice. You matter, I matter, we matter, and we're better together. Join us on Knowledge or Nonsense.
Howdy-ho, everyone. How are you doing today? My name is Sharon with UCDI Leadership and Do Something Daily, LLC. How's everyone doing?
Pretty good.
Good. Well, first things first, I want to thank you for coming on to Knowledge and Nonsense tonight. I'm excited about some of the things we're going to discuss. What is sustainability as it relates to reliability? Are they the same? And could people be missing their reset window? Could we be so focused on everything that's not going well or everything that's uncertain? Could we be focusing so much there that maybe we're not capitalizing on the gift of time or the opportunities that we have right here with us? And so without further ado, everyone should be familiar with LaWayne Perkins, president of CS Assist, #1 online resource for all things CS. Danny Vasquez, emergency consultant. We'll get into our guests tonight, our guest panelists here in just a moment, and I'll be able to share some of their credentials with you. But first thing first, guys, what are some of Allison, let's start with you. Welcome and thanks for joining. Oh yeah, you're setting the tone right now. What do you think are some of the focal points and like morale mindsets that we may have to navigate or just point blank address as we're opening back up again?
Thanks for having me on too, by the way. But I think one of the biggest things that we all need to keep in mind is to just have some empathy for each other. So it's going to get really, really busy. So we have all of this like lost time that surgeons are going to have to make up for, organizations are going to have to make up for in order to, recoup any financial, any money they've lost with not having surgery, right? So, and our staff may have a lot going on in their personal lives. So they may have sick family members, they may have really weird schedules with their kids, with daycare, with school, and they may be sick themselves. So people may only be able to give about 80% of what they're used to giving or what they usually give. And we're going to be asking for like 200% from them. So I think one of the most important things is to just have conversations with the team, check in with them regularly. If they're having a lot of issues, be flexible, because this is really like uncharted waters right now. And I think if we can all kind of look out for each other and have each other's backs and be supportive, I think that's really going to go a long ways as far as being able to support our customers and make all our targets and make sure that we're, supporting the operating room and doing all the things we need to do. We really have to support each other first.
I like that. And I like it. I really like how you actually considered like everyone, because that's true. Even though the volumes are the pressing things within the facilities, people are working in the facilities and people have things that they're concerned about as well, pressing things outside of the facility. What do you guys think? What are some of the things you think we may have to address?
I totally agree with empathy. I just started a new account about 4 weeks ago near the UN, and something that it seems like everyone had was that that day one jitters. You're just not sure what's going to go on, how it's going to go, the unknown. And I think something that Allison touched on that's very important is just having that empathy for each other. You know, it's something I've constantly said throughout the previous shows. Empathy is key. Making sure you put yourself in, you know, someone else's shoes. And also, just because you're ready to listen doesn't mean someone else is ready to talk. Just being there, being present, and just accepting of what's going on, because like we're all dealing with this in different ways. So, but something I noticed that after, you know, those first couple of days, everyone just gets back into the groove of things. Like it feels almost refreshing, almost just getting back into something that being immersed into the environment. You know, I was actually joking with my wife today. I'm like, oh, I just got called into the OR right now and got yelled at by the surgeon for not having the fighters. I'm like, that was the best feeling. I was like, I'm sorry. I'll make sure this never happens again. Don't worry about it. But you know, just getting into the staying at home and in quarantine and you know, trying to isolate yourself really does play a number on you mentally and emotionally. But you know, even though we all experience like these levels of grief together, being able just to be back into the into our field is just so great. But yeah, something I had to learn again was how to talk to people because it seems like I completely forgot how to hold the dialogue with my peers at work. So I was just like, yeah, okay, I don't know what to say now. But yeah, empathy.
Yeah. I would totally agree. I think what's is beautiful and tragic in the same breath, right? The beautiful part about it is that we're all supporting characters in this huge movie. When the star in this movie happens to be COVID, right? Happens to have all the limelight, all of the resources, all the attention, but all of the supporting cast members are the patients, are your staff members and families, are the victims and the caregivers, every member of the team. So um, this is one of those rare moments that collectively, as a nation, uh, as a society, we're all in this together, whether we want to be here or not. Right? You have no choice but to be a part of it. You can't escape it. Um, so I think even if you don't know what empathy means, you're actually forced to learn that trait. You're forced to adopt that new measure. You're forced to care, right? Because it's in your face. You see it every day on every channel. Um, one thing I want us to be careful of is not to just adopt a desensitivity for a number, right? We see every day 100,000 people have lost their life to COVID. After a while, some people tend to forget that behind those numbers are actual people. The people who have families, who have stories and memories, and who have totally lost out on the human experience because of this travesty of a virus. So um, I agree, having empathy, but just that humanistic feel. Let's not forget, as we have this dialogue, behind all of the numbers are actual human beings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
Well, I was going to say, NC State actually did a survey. They used 90 healthcare workers or people who identified as healthcare workers against 90 control members. And the healthcare workers, this was done from March to middle of May, scored 30% higher on depression symptoms in the area that
Wow.
they're looking at. Really, healthcare workers are clinically depressed. So, and it all comes from COVID and anxiety. So, you're going to see that with your staff. Your staff are probably going to have more family type issues, more anxiety, so you just need to be prepared for that.
Yeah,
Hey,
that
I'm sorry, Sharon and Warren. You know what's the what I find so very interesting? I have a high school son who graduated this year, right? And I remember my high school graduation. It was one of the best moments ever because you got a chance to have all your friends and all of those people who weren't friends and all of the beautiful strangers at the same place in this huge auditorium somewhere called graduation. And that was the defining moment where everyone would, begin to identify or tread their path forward. And many of those folks who begin to tread paths forward, you may never see again, just because we went to different schools, different career options, etc.
Right.
And now this class of 2020, unfortunately, is now identified because of this national crisis.
Right.
So as we tread through these murky waters and things get better, this unique group is always going to have this single moment in time to reminisce and remember. So I truly hope that this class of 2020 really take these marching orders forward and really do some good and learn how to share more empathy amongst themselves.
Warren actually shared something that reminded me of something that I've been doing. I posted up the link in the private chat if you guys want to share it publicly. It's called the heroesresearch.org. It's basically just a survey of all healthcare workers, anybody in the hospital, whether, whatever field you're in, whether it's administrative, clinician, housekeeping, environmental, whatever. It's just gathering all our voices together to basically see how it's impacting us as healthcare workers overall, being in the healthcare field and stuff like that. So it's something I feel like everyone should register and just check it out really quickly, and you fill out some of those surveys, because a lot of the questions they began asking actually helped me think about things a little differently. Just made me take a chance, take a moment to really put my thought into it, because when you're home, you let your thoughts really get to you, and you really think that you're in it alone, especially if you're in a household that doesn't have other healthcare workers or anyone in the field. So you really don't know if there's anyone that you could really talk to. But these questions really open your eyes to we're all in this together. We really are.
We are.
I just I want to weigh in just a bit before I go over some of your history. I want people to know exactly who we have, who's weighing in. Along that line, let me be clear, as I'm so grateful. I love sterile processing. I love the opportunities I have had with sterile processing. Just this tribe it has introduced me to, you know what I'm saying, over the past decade. But let's be clear with this. I know sometimes, or wherever our origins are, sometimes we tend to, be like, well, I'm okay, or I'm all right. And so you don't actually deal with those things. Let me be clear. If you are feeling any of those things, or if you're experiencing them, it doesn't mean that you are that. It just means that is what you're feeling. And there's no shame in that, because you have been working relentlessly for months now. And so no matter what you do, if it's relentless for months, like there's no time for you to refresh or to woosah or breathe, or, sometimes you don't even have time for the self-care that you would normally have, whether that's just a happy hour or whether that's a beach, looking at the water through your toes. So don't let there be any guilt if you do those things, and have more than just you want to have people that you can speak to within the healthcare field, but you also want to have maybe listen to some things on YouTube, some lane specific things on mindset and thoughts, because you don't have time to do other things, but just having that in your ear can help you learn some tools to help navigate these changes that we're going through. We're learning how to live in what is called tension. So no shade, no guilt, no faking the funk. It's all good. And I want you to be able to address that so you can continue to serve at 150. But before we go to our commercial break, we're going to take a commercial break here in about a minute or so. I want to tell you about Allison Sonstily. Allison has nearly a decade of healthcare experience in sterile processing and supply chain. Her degree is in biology, and she's Triple Crown. For those of you familiar with ISHM, she is Triple Crown. She's a sterile processing coordinator in North Dakota, and she's an educator, speaker of AMI. She's a member of AMI work groups, and she's also a consultant for healthcare facilities and industry suppliers. And so I want to thank you, Allison, for being with us this evening. I also want to thank you for not being one-dimensional in your approach towards sterile processing. One of my passions is letting people know, like, sterile processing is wide open, not just inside the hospital, but that expertise we need to be able to share our voice so that people can be, so the healthcare can be, it just continues to improve, you know. Also, Lorraine Perkins, president of CS Assist, I've said that. Danny Vasquez, he is an emergency management consultant. He's a graduate of NYU. I'll stop right there just because he's from, you know, that NYU in New York. But he has over 15 years in healthcare himself. Warren Nist. Warren is the principal consultant with emergency. Warren, let me put, you know what I want to do before I do anything? I want to, did I not put it on here? I want to put your link up so that we can see where you are. I think my producer, there we are. So if you guys are interested in connecting with Warren at Evolve Sterile Processing, this link will be going across periodically. Please take that information. He's a wealth of information. And so definitely as we are opening back up and volumes are coming back up, we want to be able to have the resources and the excellence that we need. So that's enough of me talking about that. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what we can do with some of this freed up time. I know volumes are ramping up right now. And so the time we thought we had in a lot of places, that time is diminishing quickly. Like it's here. It's here. It's like, oh, I forgot to go Christmas shopping, but it's 9 p.m. on Christmas Eve. So it's here. But we want to talk about some of the things that maybe we can do for people who are working their way back up. Maybe they have 17 cases, but they're used to having 35 cases. What's something we can do with those man hours? What's a way that we can direct that? Maybe there's something we've been wanting to implement, but time and or budget did not allow for it. How can we present our case more effectively now? So when we come back from this commercial, we'll answer some of those questions. And of course, anything you all have that you would like to share, feel free to do so. We'll be right back.
Lost time is never found again. CS Assist specializes in providing CS leadership more time to focus all resources on patient care and safety by assisting with your compliance needs. We understand that there are many department recommendations and even more regulatory compliance mandates to adhere to and to follow. We focus on the constant changes in staff education and regulatory compliance, allowing you to focus on the daily operational needs. And realizing the value of time, we partner with you to alleviate risk in all areas. We offer a variety of support packages that will assist you with everything from CSPD specific policies and procedures to a fully customized survey readiness plan for your team. For more information regarding our consulting retainer options, our qualitative and quantitative reporting tools and online documentation, please give us a call at 1-833-CSP-ASST, 1-833-277-2778.
Excellent. And we're back. Thanks so much. We're back. Please feel free to share this video. Hey, if you guys out there have any questions, I see we have viewers here. Thanks for the hearts and the likes. Really appreciate that. If you have any questions or you have just something you want to share, feel free to post a comment and we'll be able to share those comments. But right now, what do you think? How are some ways we can utilize these freed up man hours?
Well, I think one way to is this, because we have to speak from different perspectives, right? So as a director of sterile processing, one way I have shared with some of my mentees who are also directors of sterile processing was to dig into your quality components of what you do. In a normal sterile processing facility that's hustling and bustling, you have very little time to actually be in your office and scrutinize the necessary reports that are needed to qualify your day-to-day functions. Now that you have the gift of time, you can actually take a step back and from a 360-degree overview, see all of the gaps in service that you may have missed before. As an example, a lot of SPD directors that I speak to, they have yet to take the undertaking of categorizing how much waste is coming from the OR. So a case card goes up, and we know every Wednesday, Dr. Brown sends back, you send up 17 trays for one particular hip case, 10 trays are coming back down, or 2 trays are coming back down, with a host of other unused stock and supply. If we can capture that waste, you can make some amazing changes, cost-saving initiatives for the operating room by updating preference cards, or without going too far, creating space for advanced conversations.
Something I would,
What do you think?
so something I was doing when I was freed up with my time was trying to educate myself, trying to brainstorm of how I'm going to tackle different obstacles and processes. And something I realized just jumping into a new account is like I had to remember I have to be very flexible still. So you're ready to tackle project ABC, but living in the world of sterile processing, perioperative services and the OR, get ready for a monkey wrench to be thrown in the whole system. So be ready to still be flexible. Nothing's changed with that. There's still going to be things that come up, but do utilize your free time to try to at least establish a plan of attack. Prioritize exactly what needs to be addressed to make things more efficient and effective. But something that did impact the time was also that the time we had to basically gather our thoughts was also a bad thing, because there has been such a significant gap between projects or different things that were being implemented that now we have to almost recreate the wheel with certain processes. So I feel like being flexible is very important right now, especially when you're going into, even if you're going into the same environment, but it's a completely different feel and timing of everything. So flexibility is important.
I want to spin that question a little bit when you guys finish. Allison?
I would agree. The flexibility, we've seen that play out with our staffing, because we have 3 different facilities that we staff out of like one pool. And so we've got our level 1 trauma center, we have an orthopedic hospital, and we have more of like a same-day surgery, general type surgery facility. And so those case volumes have really kind of swung all over the place depending on where we were at, and elective surgeries, and so we really had to be flexible and creative in how we're moving our technicians around amongst those 3 facilities. And I think another thing too is we were able to tackle a lot of projects, because as we all know, it's like, well, we wish we had more time. If only we had more time, we could, go through the preference cards, or we could change and clean up this inventory and get rid of some of this old stuff. And we had all this time. And so prioritizing those projects and being able to move people around to be able to get all of those different projects done was really important. And that speaks to leadership too. So if you have strong leaders in your facility that are willing to delegate and direct people and get everyone in their most effective spots, that's really important to do.
I was going to say, with some of the teams that I have spoken with, a lot of the CS people actually got diverted from CS into other areas of the hospital. So even though there was a downtime, there was many more areas that they were supporting, whether it was even a supply issue or PPE deliveries or what have you that they didn't normally do. So they really didn't have the time to put into their department. But risk assessments, as Luane was indicating, it's a great time to do a risk assessment and build upon your quality initiatives. Obviously, the dollars don't tend to follow with the income lost, but you can at least start to build the framework for it. It seemed like it was a great time for a lot of opportunities, but it didn't really facilitate for some folks.
Right. And something I actually want to add to that, use this time to cross-train your employees. I feel like I've heard that a lot through many of my colleagues that I've been speaking to. Like, all those specialized technicians you have, use this time to utilize them to teach the other staff members to cross-train and have more specialized team. So yeah, cross-training.
I want to actually spin that question just a little bit, because we are all coming, this panel, if you don't know, this panel comes from all different places across the nation. And in some more rural areas, oftentimes you may have a smaller facility and you have a supervisor, but the supervisor is fulfilling every role. And so the supervisor may actually be the leadership. How would we want, what are ways we can encourage the supervisor or even practical methods to help the supervisor as things come back? To what Warren spoke of, personnel have been diverted. However, sometimes the physicians are not aware of how SPD personnel may be diverted. And so as everything comes back, sometimes, you just say, well, we've had all this time, why don't we have this? So I'm not saying that it happened. I'm saying it probably has in the past. So what are some ways we can help individuals, definitely in areas where you are the supervisor or you are the lead, but you don't have a manager or a director, like you're it. And so what are some ways we can help them navigate that so that the people you work with, that you can communicate to them without being disrespectful or without just being like, why don't they know, because during this time, everybody is kind of circling their own wagons because we don't know what's going on. So what are some ways that we can help a supervisor or a lead in that area navigate that? Lorraine, I see you nodding. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just love this question because I've been there, right? I've been in several scenarios. One, exactly how you explained, where you're it. I've been in the another type of scenario where there was a director, but he or she was not present or active. It was only a title bearer. Um, so to my supervisors out there and the entire SPD nation, just know that you matter. You have to adopt that understanding that you are important and integral part of the healthcare chain of the team. Without you, nothing happens. Um, I remember in a set scenario that this particular team, of course, we have 3 shifts with a pretty large facility. Um, uh, about 65 cases a day. But when I got this role, there were no daily communication huddles or no shifts reports. It was just 3:30 p.m. First shift leaves, second shift comes in, and whatever they find, they find. I think as a supervisor, it's important that you communicate with your teammates, your colleagues on other shifts, um, exactly what's going on. And sometimes a verbal exchange is not enough. The two of you should walk the perimeter. Walk the operating, walk in to the case card side, see how many cases still need to be pulled. Take a tour of the facility and have some closure time that they can open up appropriately for the next shift. So I'm going to encourage you to have conduct shift reports, both a verbal exchange and electronic record. I'm also gonna tell my supervisors that you should be coming into your shifts at least no minimum than 35, 40 minutes earlier, right? You need time to gauge what's really going on. I always tell folks, if you come to work on time, then you're late, right? You want to be there early enough to allow your counterpart to decompress, allow them to give you the day's woes and glories, and then see them off, a noble farewell before you jump into the heat.
Okay. Anyone else? And I believe you're speaking to leadership right now, Dwayne. Even leadership that may be their own leadership and not have someone else they can pull
Right.
from.
Right, and I want to definitely add to that. Whether you're a leader, supervisor, the jack of all trades, I think if you do have that downtime, it's time to get to know your staff a little better. Sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment, in the process, you're just running left and right, trying to either put out a fire or just trying to get ahead of the ball. That we fail to make these connections with our colleagues and like our teammates. But now that we have this free time, well, a lot of sites do. Let's make those connections. Let's strengthen those bonds.
Well, I'm just because I definitely want us to give the individuals who are kind of there, they may feel them by themselves, who are there themselves. I want us to definitely get, if we can, even like language to how to have that conversation when volumes go up and they start getting, I don't want to say blamed, but may be held responsible because someone doesn't know that staff was diverted. And so someone may assume that you had all this free time during all the downtime in COVID, everything should be in order now. And they may not know that, personnel have been diverted, that personnel have been sent home to, save on budget, save on man hours. So I really want us to give those supervisors and those leads who, even though they may have a title or something different, they're the whole kit and caboodle. You guys understand what I'm saying? They don't have a huge department. It's them. It's them plus 2 or it's them plus 3. Allison, you look like you.
Yeah, so I think, and this is something that you can apply, whether it's just you or if you're a leader of a group, but I think sometimes, especially when it gets chaotic, the expectations of what exactly the service we provide and the timelines that we provide it get kind of confused. So our customer may be expecting that, we are able to turn these items over in, 2 hours. I need it back in 2 hours. And sometimes they know just enough to be dangerous. So like, for example, I've had OR people come into the department and say, I gave you this thing to turn over an hour ago. Is it ready yet? Is it sterile? And we'll, like, why are you asking now? And they'll say, well, the sterilizer cycle time is about an hour, so it should be ready. So they know just enough. And so they start kind of making assumptions and telling, stories about what they think might be happening. And so I think the best bet to do is to try to get some face time with the leaders for your customers and just go over those expectations. What exactly is going on? What are you capable of doing? What kind of service are you going to be able to provide to them? And just kind of lay all that out and have kind of a groundwork to go back to so that they're not, again, assuming that you're able to do more than you're able to do, and explaining why. So, if they know it's going to take this long and here's why, then they can be really clear about what they're expecting you to do and how fast you can do it, right? Because that's usually like, why can't you do it faster?
Yes.
So I think it's being able to have those conversations with the leaders in your customers and being able to explain that to them. And it's kind of hard to have those conversations and to lead those, but being able to do that will really pay off in the long run.
I was going to say, yeah, I call that continuity of teamwork, though. And that's something that should always happen. It should have happened during the pandemic, or we're still in the pandemic, but, it shouldn't have changed. Even though all of these other issues are popping up, you still have to maintain your status quo. And that is those conversations that you have on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. And that includes rounding on your customers. Like LaWayne, I started off as a supervisor decades ago, with having 7 people work with me and in a small hospital, on the Jersey Shore. And, we had to deal with a lot of different adversities, like the storm that's coming up the coast now. So it's not just pandemics. It's anything from a snowstorm to a tropical storm to whatever. Obviously, the pandemic is a little bit more long lasting, but you still meet with and discuss your issues on a regular basis and build that continuity of care for your patient by having those conversations with those other team members that you work with on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's a very, very valid point. We have to do our best to minimize the element of surprise, right? You have to reduce surprises in your department. Because when you're surprised, that's when the errors happen. And these surprises come in different forms and fashions, right? Add-on cases, AKA surprise. I didn't know this case was added on. Or add-on cases and they didn't send a pick ticket down. Bigger surprise. So you have to understand the synergy of your team, of course, and you have to be able to read, read the environment. You can be a supervisor or a leader in your department or a technician for so long. The moment you walk into that atmosphere, no one has to utter a word. You know exactly what's going on. You know which doctor is on task, which OR manager is running shift, and who's the board runner. And no one has to say a word just because of the environment. So I agree with you, Warren. That continuality of care, you absolutely need to engage your team continuously and have fluid communication.
Well, I was going to say, again, I was in a hospital on the Jersey coast during 9/11. So, everything stopped. It was immediate. It was disarray. Danny, your emergency management, everything just exploded at once.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody really knew what was going on. So it could be in an instant, or it could be, as something as we're talking about the tropical storm, something that's building, that's coming. But there's a lot of things that just happen. With the Jersey coast, there's a lot of buses that run from Atlantic City to New York. We've had buses tip over. We had people come into our ERs who couldn't speak English, who, 30, 40 people at a time. So you deal with a lot of adversity, and it's just being prepared. And that's why I say continuity of care, continuity of work, within your leadership team, that you always are prepared.
Yeah, I remember during Sandy, I was in one of the #1 trauma centers in New York City, and just seeing how, again, being flexible, just trying to help out anywhere that needed to help out. I ended up from, greeting, helping people into the triage, to then bringing up gas tanks, creating a fire line up the staircase, bringing up for the generators. You have to be ready. You have to, in those cases, you have to over prepare almost, because you don't know what's coming through those doors.
All right, excellent. Thanks so much. We need to take just another break. I definitely want to pay some sponsors. I want to take this time and full on say thank you to CS Assist, LaWayne, but thank you to the company of CS Assist for sponsoring this and allowing us to have this forum. I want to say thanks to SIPS Consults, just for, again, supporting and sponsoring this forum so that we can get information out. We're going to take a break, give some kudos to SIPS Consults. And when we come back, we're going to do some rapid fire questions. We've already been doing this for like almost 40 minutes. Time goes by pretty fast. And so we're going to do some rapid fire questions, like common challenges for the leadership. We're going to ask for common challenges, not just the managers, but like your directors and your executive team as it relates to sterile processing. I mean, is it that they don't understand the process? And maybe they do, so many people do. So many directors and nurses I know actually have spent time in CS Assist. It's not always what we hear in the they don't understand. Some don't, but some do. And so we're going to try to see what are some of the challenges that our customers have. Like, for real, sometimes we're so focused on having to defend ourselves. Well, they don't understand. Well, let's seek to understand others. Instead of seeking to be understood, let's seek to understand what will be some of those challenges that they may have, even as they're coming out now. And so when we come back, we'll be ready to answer a couple of those questions. Rapid fire. We'll be right back. And we're back. Hey, LaWayne, I love that right behind your head. Do what you love. Yes, we love SPD. Do what you love. We love sharing knowledge and helping people perform better as peak performers. So what do you think are some common challenges for SPD directors and like your CNOs, your executives? What are some common, like just one or two, quick. What are some challenges that they may have?
They lack visibility. A lot of folks in leadership positions lack visibility. And I don't mean visibility at the conference table. I mean visibilities in the departments that are on the front line. It's not surprising. I walk into hospitals all over the country, And when I'm giving a tour by SPD, the only time they can identify with the leadership of the facility is by pointing to a picture on the wall. And I would say, how often does your CNO or CFO come down? Never. So to CNOs out there, folks in the C-suite, make it your business to go and visit the folks on the front line. Once you get that team behind you, it impacts not just the bottom line, but the morale of the entire organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would agree when you look at surgeons as well. I've had chief surgeons come down to sterile processing, but those are the people you need to engage with, and you need to increase your visibility. Obviously, in the pandemic, for everybody, it's going to be budgetary issues. The loss of income has been great, and some folks that I've worked with need new equipment, for example, and they're not going to get it now because of the loss of income. So that's going to be something everybody's going to be challenged with.
Something I see a lot also is that what worked pre-COVID is not necessarily going to work post or during COVID, especially with, like we spoke earlier, so many departments being changed over. You have surgical techs now working in Lynn, and you have, people in SPD working in the front, the main desk of the hospital. You have a lot of people working remotely also. So stuff that worked, the leadership styles that worked during before COVID hit is not necessarily going to work during this time. You have to be more, again, flexible and be able to adapt to what's going on overall in your whole facility.
I think to piggyback on all those comments, I think executive support is really inconsistent depending on what facility you work in. Some people have great support from their executive team, and some people, it's like Wayne said, where they don't even know what goes on down in the basement. They're like, oh, it's that like the dishwashing people, or what's going on down there. So that can be really challenging. And then I think another thing too, from a resource standpoint, is just being able to effectively ask or request for the resources that you need to be able to do the job is really hard. So I think, a lot of times I hear people struggling about, I need equipment, our washers are always broken, they're way past their expected life. How do we put together a request to actually get that equipment, and being able to convince your executive leadership, especially if they have no idea what you do, that you need that, and that it's worth investing, thousands and thousands of dollars in that equipment to help get the job done the right way.
And with that, I do want to share again. I like to try to hit the supervisors and leads, because there's so many facilities where supervisors and leads actually are responsible, for departments. And it may not look like that on the org chart, but when you go to work every day, like it's all on you. And so being able to build a case, what everyone has said, all of what the panelists have said, but your ability to build a case and effectively communicate said case, whether via PowerPoint, a dashboard, a spreadsheet, or your words, language mastery, that is imperative to you being able to get some of that equipment. Because if they can't see it, they can't see it until you help them see it.
Right. And that's true, because a lot of us don't have, like business degrees, or we don't have we learned how to do the job doing the job. And so if you don't have someone teaching you how to do those things and ask for the things you need, then you're not going to learn it, as well as you could have if someone was kind of mentoring you and teaching you how to do it.
So that's something.
And FYI,
yeah,
I definitely mentor in that area, but again, I have had family members who worked in certain fields. So I'm not the only one. I'm sure other people mentor. Go ahead, Danny. I apologize.
I learned that through experience. How I would just write like a 20-page, email saying why we needed something, and nothing would happen. But then I realized through experience that putting a price tag on something, making a proposal, saying this is how much it's costing you, and this is how much you're going to save with just a little bit of investment, that speaks volumes in itself. And then people start moving, those mountains just for those savings. So creating a proposal, putting a dollar amount, is a lot more effective than just saying, I need X, Y, Z. Come with the problem and also with several solutions.
Yeah. So communication, the dollar amount, Even things such as the stoplight system that you see in a lot of facilities nationwide with the red, yellow, green, those colors reinforce things that you're saying. If you like red means we are really succeeding. When they read that red, they're still gonna be like, "What's wrong? What's stop?" Like so you can use other things to help reinforce. And so if you don't have a mentor, by all means, reach out. SIPS consults mentors. I'm sure Warren mentors, CS Assist mentors. I definitely do with UCDI leadership, and it's specific to SPD. Again, because there's so many things so much information we have that is necessary for others to get. And it actually affects how effective patient safety, business, bottom line, it affects things in your facility. You may find some money for some raises, no guarantees, but I'm saying, who knows? If you find a closet back there with a bunch of instruments and you prevent them from having to purchase more instruments, then that helps.
It can happen. One of the premises and visions of CS Assist was to be able to empower all members of the SPD community to have access to these level 1 tools. These tools that can show you how to conduct a risk assessment, can show you how to take 2 products and do a cost analysis that drive the value right back to the places that are needed. So the resources are available. We just have to continue to get the word out that on this team, we're not harboring knowledge. We want to share. So please reach out and connect with Sharon, and she's definitely the gateway to a lot of resources.
Yeah. So Warren, I wanted to ask you one of the questions. So do you believe this is such a great segue into this next question? So do we believe the CSPD changes are fueled most by pain or by advancement? And I love asking stuff like this because we all know it's like, yeah, we're going to do it. Yes, everyone knows what needs to be done. But sometimes when we hit a certain window, Joint Commission or CMS, like things start getting done a little more. But in all seriousness, like, do we believe it's fueled most by pain, by advancement? Is it a combination of both, and why? What do you think, Warren?
I'll answer in 2 parts. One, when you look at competition among manufacturers, that's when you see change in the industry. That's what I've seen in my career. For example, changes in wrap styles, right? Whether it's a color-coded situation or a special way to wrap something. Patents ran out, competition developed, changes occur. Same thing with biologicals. How fast can we get a biological to read out? It's competition. Typically, though, what I see in sterile processing is changes mostly occur, I hate to say it, on pain points. When something happens to a patient or a physician is just, unhappy with the services he's receiving, or even an OR director or what have you. It's those pain points. It's the inefficiencies that quite often drive change. The problem with sterile processing is it's not a revenue producing department. You can argue how you design that, but everything, when you look at sterile processing, it's return on investment. When you go to the financial, to the C-suite, they want to know where they're getting their bang for their buck. But it comes back to patient safety and risk. And patient safety and risk are big dollars. And we've seen that over the years. We saw that close to New York with a surgery center in the last, a year and a half or so. We've seen it in dental facilities when things aren't performed correctly. There's a huge cost. It's put some people out of business. And it can do the same thing for a hospital. So it just depends on what angle you're looking at. But I'm going to say for the sterile processing department, it's generally a pain point. And in the industry, it's generally competition.
Yeah, I would concur with a lot of that. I would also add that some changes, many changes, a lot of changes fueled by the leader of the department. Sure. You can have an organization that has laid dormant for years because of leadership, but you put the right leader in there who, and when I say leader, I need to also put special emphasis on the technicians now that are obtaining certifications and graduating. They're not the same technicians from 25, 30 years ago. These folks are a lot smarter, a lot more savvier, and many of them, believe it or not, they actually know their work. So they're walking into the department with these grand ideas on what a sterile process facility should look like and how one should function. They're actually using the tools that they've learned in aiming that theory, and they're making it practical. So they're connecting from that theoretic view to the hand so they can touch it. And that's the fun part of SPD, to see these up and coming classes really honing in on the infection prevention aspect of our role, the managerial aspect of our role. Even as a technician, there's a certain level of managerial function that you have to adopt in order to be successful. So the teams that are coming in, the teams that are performing, even by happenstance, these risk assessments, they are then by being made influencers to the decision makers are driving that activity to change the dynamic of the organization.
Okay, I do have something I want to weigh in on there, but I'm gonna keep going. I think you guys actually answered another question I had about the measurements that individuals use, but I believe we've hit that with the bottom line and what things look like. If not, like if someone is considering adopting a form of technology, whether that's a new tracking system, whether even if it's just equipment, you know, the sinks, you want the sinks to rise, like what goes in, what do you think would, what typically goes into that process when people are making those decisions? What programs to adopt, what technology to use? What are some things we look at besides just volume? Volume, specialty. You know, many people bought the Da Vinci robot. Sorry, I'm just gonna put. Many people bought robotics. I don't want to say Da Vinci robotics, and then found out that they couldn't even sterilize that they bought. You know, like wait, we don't. So what are some of the metrics? What are some sound metrics that C-suite individuals could really use to help them?
Well,
I'll put a lot out there on
you. Go ahead.
Hey, I would say I'm gonna let Danny go. I would say C-suite, when you're making these decisions, make sure you have your sterile processing team members at the table before you get sold a bucket with a hole in it.
Right. So something that I've seen a lot in the executive level leaders is that they focus on the financial risk of a facility. And when you look at the studies that are out there about the financial risk and the facilities that have gone under or have been impacted severely, you realize that some of the things that are most detrimental to them are not financial risks, and they're more operational and strategic risks. So when you don't have a good strategy in place, or you don't have a good operation system in place, you increase liability. You get hit with those lawsuits. You get hit with, hiring more people trying to make up for the inefficiencies and the ineffectiveness of your team. So when you are implementing these systems to look like the tracking system, you're trying to become more efficient, more effective, trying to reduce these operational and strategic risks that you built up and let snowballed over time. And then you learn and you'll see slowly that by addressing those issues, the financial issues kind of slowly improve because of that.
I would agree. I think using the risk avoidance in the argument is always helpful. And then also leaning on any standards and guidelines that are out there to help support that is really helpful too, because we all know when joint commissions coming around are going to be there soon, being able to put those pieces together to be able to make it more compelling is always helpful.
Okay. Donnie says she recommends using a third-party vendor for annual audits. It's helpful for regulatory compliance, process improvement recommendations, and instructions to new technology. And that's true because sometimes, you're so busy doing the work, you don't have the time to look into some of these things. All right. And before we go to our last question, which is if there's anything you'd like to say universally or locally to your sterile processing community, again, my heart is for that mid management, not quite the manager, or maybe you are managing, but you don't have the title of the supervisors. There are two things I want to submit to you. Lawayne said, this new group is coming out smart. Listen, it doesn't mean you're not smart. It doesn't mean that they're smarter than you or you're not smart. And I want to submit that sometimes within sterile processing, first, let me back it up and say it this way. As it relates to human behavior, we have different generations. Everybody knows that in the workplace. We have the generation of if it's not broke, don't fix it. all the way to the generation of I've never had a phone that didn't update. It still worked, you know? And just because the Walkman worked perfectly, it doesn't mean that the Walkman is best for this, Spotify type age we're in now. And so, with that being said, if someone is coming in and you're a supervisor and you've been there, I'll just say 15 years, 15 to 30 or 36 years, you've been there. And you've been there and you know where the bodies are, and you've been there before we even had a tracking system. And you get a new tech comes in and the new tech automatically starts trying to implement improvements. Don't consider that tech your enemy. Because if you're fighting against that tech and that tech is fighting against you, that's one less person fighting for your team to get the things that you need, to get the new equipment that you need. Recognize it's not an insult to you. This the generation is coming to the workplace now. Everything they've done has had updates. So they don't understand if it's not broke, don't fix it. It wasn't broke when we updated it last time. So don't take that personal. And those are the two things I wanted to share. Like, don't fight someone who's coming to help you get the things that you want to see. Recognize that that's your team member. It just may look different than you're accustomed to it looking. And so that's two things. It may have sounded like one, but I promise you it was two. Recognize that and learn how to work together. We are still processing. So is there anything you guys want to say? Local communities, anything you want to just send out there to the SPD community? To the sterile
I just want to tell them thank you. This is a community that has raised many heroes, many warriors, a lot of compassion, a lot of humble success stories that go untold. To know that you matter, and embrace differences, and do your uniqueness and a combination of different skill sets. This is how we bridge the gap of teamwork. So know that you really matter.
I think, Lawayne, you said it earlier too, that you are not alone. So whether you're by yourself and you're the lone wolf in your facility, or whether you're in a group of 100 other technicians, reach out to each other. There's lots of different ways now to network, especially with social media. But just reach out to each other, and be accepting of any feedback you get. Don't get defensive, and just try to grow each other and try to help each other along the way, because it really is a team thing. And if we can help keep one technician like in the game and keeping someone from getting an infection, I mean, that is a win right there. If we can just keep one person from getting an infection, that is like, we've done our job. So being able to help each other out and reaching out to each other is really, really important right now. So you are not alone. There's other people that are going through the same thing that you are, and reach out to those people.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I was going to say.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Danny. I was going to say, hire people that fill your weaknesses. You don't want to hire people exactly like yourself. So find those people that fill your weaknesses and educate yourself continuously. Never stop educating yourself.
I like that. I like that. That's really good.
I love creating a team and being with a team that's completely opposite of me. I already know how I view things. I want to view them from a completely different point of view. And I also want to piggyback on what Ms. Payne said also. Embrace the knowledge and skills available from each generation. I'm from the newer generation, so I'm used to pressing a button and an autoclave opening by itself. But, when I first started, I went to a camp where I'm like, I have to turn this wheel to open this. I'm like, what? How do I do that? Like, are you sure nothing's going to happen? But, I was with a team that was able to break it down to me and basically teach me. So, just because you're in the newer generation, trust me, there's a lot of stuff that older generation could teach you that takes it back to the roots of before, the automatic washers or automatic opening of the doors and stuff like that. So having that knowledge of all generations is very awesome. So you can learn something from everybody, excuse me.
Excellent. Well, I just want to thank all of you, Allison, Warren, Lawayne, Danny. Thank you guys so much for being here, for giving up of your Tuesday night, for sharing your information, not just your information, for sharing your expertise and your heart toward our industry. Not just only sterile processing, but the part, it's a holistic. Lawayne, you always talk about that, how like it's many parts making up this whole. And so thank you so much for being here. All of these panel members can be found on LinkedIn. If you have questions, there are different parts of the country. If you have questions or you just want to connect with them more, you can find them on LinkedIn. If you forget that you can find them on LinkedIn, reach out to me. Let me know, hey, I want to speak with such and such. I will connect you immediately in Fort Worth. And so, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Keep fighting for patient safety. Keep learning, and grace to you as we're going through this moment where we're all living in tension. Like no one knows. Even though we all say different things, we have ideas and we may project it. We project toward outcomes using the information we have. But again, we're still in COVID, and you know, get your zinc on. I'm not a doctor, but you know, do what you can do. Get your zinc on and use your house.
Exhale.
Use your house to exercise or do some things like that.
Exhale. I feel like we've been holding our breath for so long.
So long. Exhale. You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. You may feel alone, like she said, but you're doing a great job, and there are people who are cheering for you. Again, thanks everyone so much, and
thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you soon.
Have a great night, everyone.